Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Be Kind, Be Happy Buddhist Sutra reading time. And for today's episode, we'll be going back to the Buddhist parables, which we started off the entire series with from episode 1 to episode 2. So, up until now, we've done a few sutras. We've done the Diamond Sutra just recently. Which was two-parter. We did the Platform Sutra by the Sixth Patriarch, Venerable Master Hui Neng. That was 10 chapters long. And then before that, we did the Pure Land Sutra of Amitabha Buddha, which was one of my favorites of all time. So now we're going back to a story from the Buddhist Parables book. And this story title is Elephant and Ungrateful Forester. Tagline is, "The whole earth will not satisfy an ungrateful man." So from here, we can immediately understand that the focal point of this parable is to teach us about gratitude and its importance to our joy and fulfillment and purpose in life. Okay, so before we begin the story, there's always a short extract to build the context regarding the story. So here we go. To an ungrateful man. This parable was related by the teacher while he was in residence at Veluvana with reference to Devadatta. So this is spoken by Sakyamuni Buddha 2600 years ago with reference to his cousin Devadatta, who was a very bad man that was always trying to kill the Buddha. Never succeeded. The monks seated in the Hall of Truth were saying, "Brethren, Devadatta, the ungrateful, knows not the virtues of the Tathagata," which is the Buddha. The teacher drew near and asked, so the teacher is also the Buddha, "Monks, what is the subject that engages your attention now, as you sit here all gathered together?" "Such and such," was the reply. "Monks," said the teacher, "not only in his present state of existence has Devadatta proved ungrateful. In a previous state of existence also he was ungrateful, just the same. At no time soever has he known my virtues." Then, in response to a request of the monks, he related the following story of the past. So now we get into the story of the elephant and the ungrateful forester. In past times, when Brahmadatta ruled at Benares, so this is a previous lifetime of the Buddha. The future Buddha received a new conception in the region of Himavat, in the womb of an elephant. When he came forth from his mother's womb, he was pure white, like a mass of silver. Moreover, his eyes were like globes of jewels, and from them shone forth the five brightnesses. His mouth was like a crimson blanket. His trunk was like a rope of silver, ornamented with spots of ruddy gold. His 4 feet were as if rubbed with lac. Thus his person, adorned with the 10 perfections, attained the pinnacle of beauty. So in the previous lifetime, the Buddha was an elephant. Not just any elephant, but the most perfect, beautiful kind of elephant. Now when he reached the age of reason, elephants from all over Himavat assembled and formed his retinue. Thus did he make his home in the region of Himavat, with a retinue of 80,000 elephants. At a time, perceiving that there was contamination in the herd, he isolated himself from the herd and made his home quite alone in the forest. Moreover, by reason of his goodness, he became known as Good King Elephant. So at the right age, he had his own group, his own retinue of elephants. And like that, he had a herd. He was the leader of the herd. And at the time, there was a contamination within the herd, and just to side with safety, the elephant, which was the Buddha in the future, he isolated himself to quarantine, and because of his virtues and his goodness, he was known as Good King Elephant. Now, a certain resident of Benares, a forester, entered the forest seeking wares whereby to make his living. Unable to distinguish the directions, he lost his way and, terrified with the fear of death, went about with outstretched arms, lamenting. So he was very sad. This forester lost his way. He was lost. He couldn't find home. The future Buddha, hearing those profound lamentations of his, thought, I will free this man from his suffering. And impelled by compassion, he went to him. The instant that man saw the future Buddha, he fled in fright. The future Buddha, seeing him in fright, halted right where he was. The man, seeing that the future Buddha had halted, himself halted. The future Buddha came back, and the man fled a second time. But halting, when the future Buddha halted, thought, this elephant halts when I flee and approaches when I halt. He has no desire to do me harm, but without a doubt desires only to free me from this suffering. And summoning up his courage, he halted. So now, obviously, there was a back and forth with the elephant and this forester, this lost forester. When the future Buddha, the elephant, approached him in trying to help the forester, he backed away, he ran away. But then, being the compassionate and wise elephant that he was, he stopped whenever the forester stopped, so as to not intimidate or cause him additional fear. But then, seeing that the elephant stopped every time the forester fled, the forester realized that the elephant had no intention to harm him, but in fact was trying to free him from his suffering. And so Buddha approached him and asked, why, master man, do you go about lamenting? Master, because I couldn't distinguish the directions, lost my way, and was afraid of death. Then the future Buddha conducted him to his own place of abode, and for a few days gladdened him with fruits and other edibles. Then said the future Buddha, Master man, don't be afraid. I'll conduct you to the path of man. And seated him on his back, he proceeded to the path of men. And so the future Buddha, being the very compassionate being that he was, he led the forester, the lost man, to his own house and gave him food. And after a few days, he asked the man, he offered to lead the man back to the path of men. So right now, where they were in the forest, and so there was no people were there. But the elephant, being kind, said, I'll lead you back to where people live, so the path of men. And so he seated the forester onto his own back and led him to that path. But that man, that betrayer of friends, even as he sat on the back of the future Buddha, thought, if anybody asks me, I must be able to tell him where this elephant lives. So as he went along, he noted carefully the landmarks of tree and mountain. Now the future Buddha, having conducted that man out of the forest, set him down on the highway leading to Benares and said to him, Master man, do go by this road, but as for my place of abode, whether you are asked or not, say nothing to anybody about it. So saying, he took leave of him and went back to his own place of abode. So the lost forester was not a good man. And even though he was being helped by the elephant, he realized the preciousness of this elephant, the rarity of the elephant. So he was remembering the path back to the place of abode. And so when the elephant had dropped him off, the elephant even said to him, please don't disclose where I am living. Please don't let anyone know where I live. But obviously the man had evil intentions. Now that man went to Benares, and in the course of his walks came to the street of the ivory carvers. And seeing the ivory carvers making various kinds of ivory products, he asked, "But sirs, how much would you make if you could get the tusk of a real live elephant?" "What are you saying, sir? The tusk of a live elephant is far more valuable than the tusk of a dead elephant." "Very well, I'll fetch you the tusk of a live elephant." Accordingly, obtaining provisions for the journey and taking a sharp saw, he went to the place of abode of the future Buddha. When the future Buddha saw him, he asked, "For what purpose have you come?" "I, sir, am a poor man, a pauper, unable to make a living. I came with this thought in my mind. I will ask you for a fragment of one of your tusks. If you will give it to me, I will take it and go and sell it, and with the money it brings, make a living." "Let be, sir, I'll give you tusks, but if you have a sharp saw to cut them off with. If you have a sharp saw to cut them off with. So this is very incredible compassion and generosity demonstrated by the Buddha. The man was actually very honest, which was very surprising and very, very good. He honestly said to the Buddha, "Please give me one of your tusks so I can sell them to make a living." And the Buddha didn't hesitate and said, "If you have something sharp to cut them off with, I will give it to you." "Very well. So I brought a saw with me, sir." So the forester showed his saw. "Very well, sever the tusks with your saw and take them and go away. Go your way." So saying, the future Buddha bowed his knee together and sat down like a cow. The man actually cut off his two principal tusks. So the man took off both tusks, but not just the smaller ones, but the big principal tusks. The future Buddha, taking those tusks in his trunks, said, "Master man, not with the thought these trunks are not dear to me, not pleasing to me, do I give you these tusks, but dearer to me than these 1,000 times, 100,000 times, are the tusks of omniscience, which avail to the comprehension of all things. May this gift of tusks which I here bestow enable me to attain omniscience." So saying, as it were, sowing the seed of omniscience, he gave his pair of tusks. So this elephant was very he was just very good. He made it clear to the forester that these tusks that I give you mean a lot to me. Do not think that they are worthless to me. I give these to you as a symbol of the state of omniscience that I wish to attain in the future. And so by giving them, he was sowing the seed of omniscience, practicing charity and generosity, hoping to obtain the seed of omniscience. By the way, omniscience means the state of enlightenment, the state of all-knowing. The man took them and went and sold them. When the money they bought was gone, he went to the future Buddha again and said, "Master, the money I got by selling your tusks turned out to be no more than enough to pay off my debts. Give me the rest of your tusks." "Very well," said the future Buddha, consenting. And ordering all things precisely as before, he gave him the rest of his tusks. Those also did the man sell, and then come back again. "Master," said he, "I cannot make a living. Give me the stumps of your tusks." Immediately the Buddha was, without hesitation, once again agreed. A tusk is very, very long. So first he asked for the tip, which was very, very valuable. Then he asked for the midsection, and now he's asking for the stumps of the tusks. "Very well," said the future Buddha. He sat down precisely as before. That wicked man trod on the great being's trunk. That trunk which, like no which was like onto a rope of silver, climbed on to the great Buddha's temples, those temples which were like onto the snow clad peaks of Kalesa, with his heel kicking the tips of the husks and loosening the flesh. He and having mounted the temples with a sharp saw, severed the stumps of the tusks and went his way. So, despite the man being honest and asking for the stumps of the tusks because he wanted to make a living, he was very honest. He was still very disrespectful, it seems, by treading on the elephant from his trunk to his uh, temples, and then it was sawing away at the stumps, which loosened the flesh, causing a lot of bleeding, I would imagine. But even as that wicked man receded from the vision of the future Buddha, the solid earth, which extends for a distance of 200,000 leagues and 4 inconceivable more, which is able to endure such mighty burdens, is Sinaru and Yagandhara, such foul-smelling and repulsive objects of dung and urine. Even the solid earth, if it unable to endure the wickedness he had piled upon it, burst asunder and yawned. Instantly from the 4 great waveless hell, flames of fire shot forth, enveloped that man, that betrayer of friends, wrapping him, as it were, in a blanket proper for death, and laid upon him, and laid hold of him. And so, even though the elephant was very generous and compassionate with his offering of the stumps of his noble trunks, allowing the man to walk away, the great earth felt that it was so not okay. It was such a sign of ungratitude that they were not happy with it. So the great waveless hell, flames of there were flames of fire shot forth, and it killed the man, enveloping the man to death. And so the nature was not okay with how ungrateful the forester was, even though the elephant himself had no problems with it. When that wicked man thus entered the earth, the tree spirit resident in that forest grove thought, an ungrateful man, a man who will betray his friends, cannot be satisfied, even if he be given the kingdom of a universal monarch. And making the forest ring, proclaiming the truth, the tree spirit uttered the following stanza. To an ungrateful man, ever looking for an opening, you may give the whole earth and yet not satisfy him. So usually the elephant giving the tip of the tusk would have been more than enough to satisfy all the wants and needs of a man for the rest of his whole life, as well as leave enough for future generations to come. But this man was very greedy and was very ungrateful. And here we learn that for an ungrateful man, there is never enough to satisfy him, as was shown when he came back for seconds. Even that would have been enough to satisfy many, many generations for him and his family. That was still not enough. He came back for thirds. And by that time, nature was very opposed to this man. And so they couldn't help but to enforce their displeasure, and so taking the man down with him. Thus did the tree spirit, making the forest ring, proclaim the truth. The future Buddha, having remained on earth during the term of life allotted to him, passed away according to his deeds. Said the teacher, monks, not only in his present state of existence has Devadatta proved ungrateful. In a previous state of existence also he was ungrateful just the same. Having completed the parable, he identified the personages in the birth story as follows. At that time, the man who betrayed his friend was Devadatta, the tree spirit was Sariputra, but good King Elephant was I myself. Sariputra was one of the great disciples of the Buddha, and he was utmost in wisdom. And so a lot of the Buddha's teachings was conversed is as an interaction between Sakyamuni Buddha and Sariputra, because a lot of the conversations were relating to wisdom, prajna, the wisdom of the Buddha. And so conversing with the great disciple that was utmost in wisdom was the most appropriate. And so this is the end of this story, the elephant and the ungrateful forester. Here we can see that a lot of emphasis was placed by Sakyamuni Buddha on the importance of gratitude. And when we are not ungrateful, the forces of nature may potentially be against us. But if we are gratitude and grateful, like the Buddha is in the case of the great king elephant, the good king elephant, then nature will be on our side and all will be well. Hope you've enjoyed this story. And if you like what you read, what you see, please like and subscribe. And I'll see you again in the next episode of the Be Kind, Be Happy Sutra reading time. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.